Hello and welcome to the old Fliers. I've just finished reading Big Week by James Holland, the story of the biggest air battle in World War II. As we know, Britain declared war on Germany on the 1st of September 1939. The RAF air campaign commenced on March 19, 1940. Initially, daylight bombing raids. Targets could be more easily found and identified during daylight hours. However, it soon became clear that their slow-flying bombers were too vulnerable to enemy anti-aircraft defences and fighter planes. Allied fighters, like the Supermarine Spitfire and the Hawker Hurricane, did not have the fuel range to protect bombers over Germany. That would prove untrue, as I'll explain later. Consequently, the RAF switched to nighttime bombing in September 1940, believing it was much more difficult for German pilots to find and attack their aircraft. Unfortunately, that also meant that bombing accuracy was seriously reduced. The British approached Curtiss-Wright Corporation to order 300 P-40 Warhawks as a close air support fighter to their bombers. Curtiss-Wright told them that they were flat out building for the US Army Air Corps. In desperation, the British turned to North American Aviation, a far smaller company used to building training aircraft. They asked them to produce the Warhawks under license. The President, James Howard Dutch Kindleberger, asked for time to consider. He thought the Warhawk was an old design and slower than the contemporary aircraft it would come up against. Edgar Schmued, a German-born engineer who had moved to South America after World War I and then to the US in 1931, drew up the designs for a new fighter for North America in February of 1940. Yes, a German designed an aircraft that would be the undoing of Germany. Ironic. The sleek and smooth laminar flow aerofoil wing, narrow fuselage and radiator mounted on the underside was approved on the 4th of May 1940 with an order for 320 at $50,000 US each, with a caveat that a prototype must be ready within 120 days, a ridiculously short period of time. After 78,000 man-hours, prototype NA-73X was rolled out. The first Mustangs reached England on October 1941. The British placed orders for another 620. The Ellison V1710 engine was found to be simply not powerful enough. Ron Harker, test pilot at Rolls-Royce, knew the Merlin 61 had 1,565 horsepower compared to the Ellison's 1,150. The Mustang, fitted with a Rolls-Royce engine, two-speed, two-stage supercharger and four-blade propellers, improved performance at mid and high level tremendously. The P-51 was faster than the ME-109G and 70 miles per hour faster than the Focke-Wulf 190. It was quicker in a dive and faster to turn. The US Army Air Force ordered 1,350 Packard-Merlin Mustangs in October 1942. The Mustang, with two 75-gallon drop tanks and an internal 100-gallon fuel tank, could manage 1,474 miles. Now it was time to change the thinking at the top of RAF command. Air Marshal Sir Trafford Leigh-Mallory in particular, as well as his predecessor, Air Chief Marshal Sir Sholto Douglas. General Henry Hap Arnold, Commander-in-Chief, US Army Air Force, wrote to Air Chief Marshal Sir Charles Portal, Chief of RAF Air Staff, in October asking why the RAF wasn't doing more. The RAF had thousands of fighters. Surely they could help with escorting bombers. Lee Mallory had not allowed Hawker Typhoons or Tempests to be sent to other theatres, jealously guarding them in England. Spitfires were capable of carrying up to 216 gallons internally, plus two 62-gallon drop tanks, giving a theoretical range of 1,904 miles. Later models were capable of a range of 2,700 miles, yet bombers were being sent unescorted into danger. America had not wanted to be embroiled in a European war. The Japanese assault on Pearl Harbor in December 1941 saw America dragged into the conflict. Now it was game on. American aircraft started arriving in Britain in significant numbers with the establishment of the 8th Air Force in early 1942. The first US Army Air Force combat operations began shortly after with the first heavy bomber raid in August 1942. The US Air Force began with unescorted daylight missions, a policy that was flawed, but that was how aircrew had been trained. Their bombers were heavily armed, unlike the British bombers, and flew in close support, yet losses were unsustainable. The Boeing B-17 wasn't called Flying Fortress for nothing. It couldn't carry the bomb load of the Lancaster bomber, which by comparison was lightly armoured. Escort fighters that were available could not accompany the bombers all the way to targets deep into Germany and back. In mid-1943, the Supermarine Spitfire could make it only as far as Amsterdam, 175 miles, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt as far as Zenton, 230 miles, and with a drop tank, 370 miles to Mannheim. By November 1943, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning could just make it to Berlin, 522 miles. Those ranges were reduced by combat. Fighter pilots had been told to keep tight in with the bombers and weren't free to range free. This also had been the policy of German fighters in the early days in the air war over England. By October 1943, the Americans, due to heavy losses, suspended long-range missions into Germany. Clearly, long-range fighters with the ranges of 620 miles or more were desperately needed. In late 1943, P-51 Mustang escorted bombers resumed raids into Germany, though this time the Mustangs were provoking the German fighters to attack, no longer constrained to fly close to the bombers. Engaging and defeating the Luftwaffe in the build-up to D-Day was paramount. On D-Day, only a small number of Luftwaffe aircraft were present. The Luftwaffe was a spent force due to attritional losses, poor training and resource shortages. There are an estimated 150 Mustangs in flying condition today. Perhaps you have seen a display of a P-51 at an air show. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and that will encourage new content.